Hi, Erin. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, pleasure, Kay. Thanks for having me here. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited. I'm excited. My very first question for you is in relation to setting up your day in a positive way. I personally love to set up my day by getting my energy moving in my body and checking in on my mindset space and my heart space. I'm wondering if that is something that you do for yourself.
I do, and I'm going to be totally upfront here and let you know that I also ebb and flow with my morning routine. So it's like I know what works really well for me, yet there are just some days when it doesn't happen as easily as the other days. And I think before I let you know what my routine is, I feel it's really important to in life that we experience what doesn't work to come back to what works again. So to not beat ourselves up for those days where that routine might not happen. Uh, but what I know usually works for me is to wake up and nice and early with the sun. So I'm really fortunate to live at a beautiful coastal town where I'm just a couple of hundred meters away from the water's edge, and I like to wake up and straight away walk down to see the ocean, to see something really expansive. So if you're not near the ocean, this could be the sky, or you could meditate and visualize something really expansive. But yes, I think just moving your body, but not just moving it, on the way to get your cup of tea or the toilet. Just you notice that you're moving your body, so you're like, right, you're present with it. So I do that on the way to the beach. And then you become aware of your breath. So instantly you're connecting yourself in presence to the outside world. And then set an intention for your day. It's the beginning of something brand new again. It's an opportunity to design something new. So what's the experience that you want to intend for yourself? So I guess they're really the three key things that I love putting into practice: moving your body, noticing your breath, setting an intention. There's a fourth thing, there's a few kind of power questions that I love to ask myself as well to direct me for the day.
So I love that you mentioned ebbing and flowing with your day
Mm,
because I think that is really important to tune in with how you're feeling in the moment. And also, we have to be practical with our routines. So not every morning looks the same. And the tools that you mentioned are actually quite practical and things that we can implement easily and don't take a lot of time, which I think would help a lot of people who feel like they have a really full schedule.
yeah, it does work this way, I've found, because if you were asking somebody to, as a yoga teacher, okay, do an hour yoga practice every morning, they're just going to get disheartened. They're going to start. It's kind of like starting at the gym on New Year's Day with that intention of getting fit again. Right, it's New Year's Day, I'm going to get fit, and it kind of wanes, and your old habits start to creep back in. That seems to just be the natural pattern. But if you can get little quick wins, bite-sized chunks, those quick wins start to really add up to life-changing experiences.
I'd love to touch base on why you feel it's important to find calm, connection, and happiness in our lives.
Yes. Well, as you know, and as if you're listening to this, probably know that life is full of change, and ebbs and flows seems to be the theme of what we're talking about so far. Often life doesn't turn out how we think it's going to or how we expect it to. So finding ways to, I guess, build our resilience to change is really key in life, so that when things do happen unexpectedly and things change, that we have a way of managing them so that we give ourselves the best opportunity of responding from a calm place, staying connected with ourselves in life and with in relationships around us, and perhaps even connected with something divinely greater. And this really is the pathway to happiness. I think to have some tools up your belt, under your belt, to find calm, helps you to stay connected and present in life. You think about mental health these days, and anxiety and depression, they're really a facet of feeling disconnected. We're not able to land and have gratitude for this moment right now, because there's probably stuff going on that creates a feeling of suffering and experience of suffering, and that's a disconnected, a state of disharmony. So to bring connection back again, first we have to find ways to, you know, calm the primal nervous system and start moving forward towards a greater sense of connection there. That's going to just equal happier moments in life.
For anyone who is listening to this, if they are feeling disconnected right now in this moment, what would be your suggestion for them to realign and reconnect to their heart space?
Yeah, the first thing that I would suggest is to reach out to somebody else. So there's a book I read that was a game changer for my thoughts on this, Lost Connections by Johan Hari. And one of the massive findings of that as to why people are feeling lonely and disconnected in life is because we're really isolating ourselves in Western society in particular more than ever. It's, you know, we've got the highest rates of loneliness than ever, and people feeling disconnected than ever. And these are really the sources of a lot of the mental health issues we see today. What a lot of research that backed that book went to discover was that although there is the power of the mind, and we can certainly work within ourselves to reduce some of these sources of suffering, that it's also really important to reach out into tribes again, just like we used to, but that we don't do very much. So finding a community group that's like-minded, like if you like gardening, finding a community group where, you know, no one's there to fix one another, but you're there for a common purpose, and that in itself, the byproduct of that is very healing, to find a sense of connection and purpose again. So as a yoga teacher and running yoga teacher training programs, it's incredible the sense of connection that can be found in just a weekly yoga class, or, you know, a 6-month yoga teacher training program. The cohesion of the group that come together when they've got this common purpose in mind, they're all there to immerse deeply into yoga. Your local gym, it doesn't really matter what the community group is. If it's something that you have an interest in and love to do, you're going to find others that have that too, and that's going to help with enhancing connection.
When did holistic well-being first become important to you in your life?
Oh, well, my experience of that holistic word really came through in, I would say, my first yoga class. So I'm in my early 20s in a studio in Townsville that my veterinarian housemate and school teacher friend have encouraged me to join them on this night. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. Always been into team sports and physical movement before that, had heard about yoga. It was really walking out of that yoga class where I realized something more had happened than just physical movement. My whole state of energy felt different. I felt like I'd lifted a veil, like the sky looked a little brighter when I walked out of that studio. I'm sure it was the same sky as when I walked in. And that really gave me a taste for that holistic shift and transformation that was possible. So, you know, 23 years on, of that moment and that taste of that holistic experience, you know, the body was touched, my energy was touched, my mind and my emotions shone to the surface, and I was able to look at them in a way that I hadn't really done before. And this, when we're able to look at those 3 layers of ourselves, the body, the energy, the mind, it's wisdom that's watching over these very impermanent, changeable layers of us. And this is really the skill set to move through life with, is when we can watch over this change and discern, you know, what we're attaching to that might be unhelpful, and maybe ways we're in relationship with our body and our mind that might be very helpful or unhelpful, and we can discern, make a choice about something new. So I felt like I got that opportunity that day, and that's really what started me off on this journey, this yogic journey. And mindfulness, learning about the theory of mindfulness then, this really happened profoundly after I experienced the sudden death of my husband 11 years ago now. And he was 35, fit and healthy. We just had our second baby. She was 4 months old. And we're walking through a shopping centre just like any other day. And he literally, we were walking and talking 1 minute, literally dropped dead in the next breath and never came back. And they never were able to medically determine his cause of death. So, no heart attack, no stroke, no aneurysm, no toxicity in the blood, no, where we even have ongoing genetic testing to this day, a procedure set up when medical research advances, just to see if there can be anything that's found. But the truth is, coming to an acceptance of that event, and the reality that he died, needing to know why has really become less important over time now. I think hanging on to needing to know why can reduce your time spent in the present moment. It keeps you stuck wondering what if, so future thinking, or stuck in the past of what happened back then, and finding that really difficult to come to terms with. So why I was sharing that story was because I went and started seeing a mindfulness psychologist to help me with the grief and to help me with my, at the time, 4-year-old and 4-month-old, using an application of mindfulness to help with the healing of the loss. And it was a profoundly healing tool and gave me a whole new different perspective. And to this day, I feel very passionate about sharing the principles of mindfulness through the practice of yoga, to support and share that gift of healing with others.
And my heart goes out to you for going through that experience. I know that there'll be many listeners today who have probably had a similar experience with somebody passing away unexpectedly, especially now in the time of COVID too. People are losing family members and are unable to say goodbye or unable to attend their funerals, which is a rite of passage, right, with finding closure. And so I love that you have practically put into place tools for you to continue and to not only continue to thrive. And so how, because spiritually you would have understood the impermanence of life. And I always talk to my children about how we are never promised tomorrow. That is a construct that we as human beings have created, and to make ourselves feel good. I don't know, like we hope to live a long life, and hopefully we do. And I'd love, the energy healer in me just wants to ask you, wants to ask you, I believe that our connections exist beyond the physical realm. So when we pass away, our spiritual body is still present and we can connect. So is that something you've explored with your husband passing away?
Yeah, it definitely is something I've explored since. And the more that time passes since his death, the more immersed and fascinated I am by the subject of death, and so fascinated about how much society avoids the topic of death, knowing that it's a given and that it's around us so much. I just think it's our relationship with it, and that it can show us how to live much more deeply, and that's its gift. And yes, also exactly what you mentioned, Kay, is understanding that that's not it. And I guess that's a belief system, because, as much as I'd love to remember my past lives, in fact, I had a nun at a Buddhist institute where I teach yoga guide me through a death meditation recently. And during it, I experienced one of my rebirths. I saw it all unfolding. It was so profound. I'm sure the part of the guided meditation, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here too.
I just got full body goosebumps.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I'm sure as she was guiding me through it in real time, it was only about a minute when she was holding space for me to have the opportunity to go into a rebirth. But it felt like I saw the first 7 years of my life unfold in that minute. And I can't tell you now whether that was a future life or a past life. But yeah, I definitely believe that there is something divinely greater than just this physical form in this lifetime. And what I'd like to say as well is that although I feel like I've come to know this deeply and richly, and that is absolutely the school of thought and belief that I come from now, at the time of my husband's death, the shock of it really blocked me in those moments of connecting energetically with the spirit of him. And there's things that I would love to do now if I had the chance to go back, in terms of just supporting, the travel of his transition from the physical into something else. And I was kind of too stuck in my own grief at the time, and the shock of the event, it was just so unexpected. And I think when we're stuck in that kind of suffering and not present with what's right before us, that it does block that opportunity for connection, even that kind of connection. So, even after his death, I was a little bit scared of seeing his ghost, I think it was something that just stems from childhood. Like, oh, what if I see his ghost? It's kind of like, what if there's a monster under the bed that reaches out and grabs me as I step out of bed? And just these conditioned beliefs that we have that come up in those sorts of events. And yet, at the time, I was like, come on, show me a sign that you're here, because if you're going to show it to anyone, surely, to your wife, who you were so close and intimate with, but I couldn't feel anything. And I wanted that connection, but it was still blocked by the trauma and the suffering. Like, my whole nervous system, I couldn't eat. I struggled to drink. I was trying to still breastfeed my baby and was really struggling with that. So I was really still in suffering in those early days and couldn't connect. And, this plays out just even in other experiences of life, of course. You get cut off the road by somebody, your nervous system activates, an emotion unfolds that perhaps is unpleasant, like anger or fear, and it blocks you being able to respond consideredly and in a conscious and kind way in that exact moment. And that's kind of exactly what happened to me back then, and it's exactly what keeps unfolding in those micro change moments in life too.
And can I ask, how has this experience informed your life moving forward, especially being a young mum and with your parenting, and how you've chosen to show up for yourself now?
It's 11 years on now, and I feel like it's helping me to rest back into my feminine attributes more, which is getting me more present. So, I've always been a pretty driven, high achieving kind of person. You might not get that just through maybe the calm that you've been talking about, but I've loved to achieve and do things in life, and that's often come with the backing of, I guess, striving, which has produced, which in my experience has produced a hardness in life. So to rest back into presence and to see life as it's unfolding right now, this is really radical acceptance of life as it's unfolding, not in a way that we're swayed by life and we're just, open to being rocked by the events of life, that we can accept life as it unfolds and then use that wisdom, that discernment to choose our relationship with it. Also with the trust that some things take time. These are the mindfulness pillars: patience, gratitude. Gratitude, we often use gratitude in a way where we're kind of positively thinking about it. Well, what's great about this bad thing that's happened, or what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? And it's always trying to turn it up into the positive. That another incredibly deep and powerful way that we can use the practice of gratitude is to let it envelop the unpleasantries of life as well, in a way that just says yes to life. Like, being stuck in grief back then. Yes to grief. Allow the grief to be there. Don't try to band-aid the grief or cover it up. It's going to just suppress and come out sideways at some future point. So even using gratitude to be thankful for the day that you don't wake up and put your 4-step morning ritual into action, that it's okay to be a little messy sometimes and be human and real, and a trust and a higher discernment, though, that knows that you'll get back on track and in alignment.
I love that. I'd love to ask you, how do the beautiful practices of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness add value to our life? For anyone that's listening and perhaps hasn't experienced it for themselves, how would you share that with them?
How can they add value to our lives? It really allows us to lead life in a way of non-harm. That's really the undertone of this, yogic pathway, and mindfulness and meditation is no harm first. So think of the way that you might think about yourself some days, thoughts, your body, the sleep in that you had instead of your morning ritual. So in our inner world, how can we create more compassion with ourselves and radical acceptance of exactly how we're showing up at this moment, even if it's the messiest moment? And then this can be rippled to the outside world, a more compassionate way of living in our relationships and with others around us, a more compassionate way of managing the environment and the world that we live in. A more compassionate way just gives us more space in life, really, more freedom. I think if there's one thing we all have in common, first, it's wanting to feel safe in life, from that very primal perspective. That all connects us. That's a common thread that we all share and can connect on, that at the most basic of our rights is the need to feel safe in life, safe from harm. And so then once we've kind of got that covered, we just increase our connection with life. And I think, as you and I have discussed, Kay, it's a limited ride. Let's see how we can just have the most rich experience of it while we're here.
I agree with you. And I personally had a similar experience when I was 7, witnessing my younger sister get hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
And she probably needed to have her leg amputated. So it was pretty serious. And so I've always wondered why I've had this holistic picture of life and this understanding that life is fragile. And obviously, reflecting back on my life, that has informed my mindset on how important it is to really just put your best foot forward in however that shows up, however that feels for you each day. And so these traumatic events that we sometimes go through really give us that opportunity to either change the way we do things or really reflect on what would I do differently, And so there's always a blessing or a lesson that we can take through every experience, I think, that we experience in life. Good, like we don't even have to attach whether it's good or bad to it. It's a moment and it's an experience, and it's a divine expression of life. And so we get to choose how we want to interpret it and then use it for ourselves, which is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, and that's an early life lesson for you there. And I think it comes at different points for people, doesn't it? It's like some people are born with that awareness of holistic living. Some people get it just before they die. They realize what is really important anyway, or like you as a child, or me older. I'd look at my girls and I think 4 months old and 4 years old, they've been dished a really challenging lesson of their father dying, yet one that I trust is going to give them that deeper, richer, more holistic view of life for their whole life moving forward now. So that's really a gift. That's really a gift of what's happened. And the other thing is too, like you said, those pleasant and unpleasant moments, and just seeing them all as moments, having that curiosity about them rather than one's good, one's bad. knowing that it's really human for when, stuff does hit the fan, that these emotions are a really human part of us. So how can we allow the energy of grief to move through us, and how can we feel the fear and not cover it up? How can we work through with it in a really positive way? And one thing that I've opened up to just in the last 12 months is working with another group of women who hold a safe space for each other. We meet weekly and talk about all the stuff that's coming up for us in life, but not in a gossipy way, in a really conscious way, whether it's business, relationships, health issues. We've all been through the most incredible things together in the last 12 months. And just the benefit of having, that community, like we were talking about earlier, to tap into and be able to voice exactly how you feel, even if it is backed with fear or grief, and that it's held in a safe, non-judgmental space, is so healing.
It's a real gift to be able to have that too in your life. And we can all call that in if that's what we need. It's not, I don't think it's something that is special to one group or special to another group. We all have access to that, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And I see groups emerging, here on the Sunshine Coast. It's on the rise, even men's groups that are forming, sister circles, all these sorts of things. It could be you and your neighbours, or, your gardening group as you're pulling the weeds, and you might be having a little chat about stuff. But the key is, as long as it's a non-judged space and you're just able to be you and share, and that's held with love, that's the healing pathway.
For someone who might be listening today who would like to connect with you and perhaps come to one of your classes, can you let us know where they can come to your classes here on the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, I run the Mindful Yoga School. So if you head to the website, themindfulyogaschool.com, all the events, I run retreats, yoga teacher training programs, retreat days, and yes, one class a week, at the moment based out of Chenrezig Institute in the foothills of the Sunshine Coast in the little old town of Yulo, population 900. But it's a monastic setting, so there's a lot of nuns and monks there, and it's such an incredibly sacred space where the yoga and these trainings are held, in a place that just lives and breathes compassion and cherishing others, and taking actions in life that benefit others in the community. So themindfulyogaschool.com is the place to go to find out where all that's happening and what's on.
And you forgot to mention the fabulous food at Chenrig.
Oh, I did. There's the Big Love Cafe at the moment. I'm sorry to inform you, but they're not doing the lunches at the moment, which was the big draw card, right? Apart from the yoga, apart from the Dharma teachings, there's still a thriving program and people visiting in communities. The cafe's open for their beautiful things like bliss balls and cake and coffee and the best chai, if you're okay with soy milk, the best chai. But yeah, we're all like, come on, when are the lunches coming back on? But they are in need of some more volunteers up there as well to kind of get the machine back up and running as it was. And that includes the cafe. So yeah, if anyone listening feels so inclined, there you go.
Now, I often hear that we teach what we most need to learn in life. And so upon reflection, why do you think, or what have you learnt through your time being in this space?
Oh, it's such a good question, and it's so true. I'm in complete agreement with you. It's interesting that the key lesson that I want to share up front is that less is more. And having become a teacher of yoga, mindfulness, and meditation, really with the intention to share the healing gifts I'd received during the challenging points in my own life, and on that teacher journey, feeling the need to express everything that I learned and having to share everything, that the message often gets lost. So learning to actually zip the lips and listen more, and in in that aspect. Less is more. And I think it's really just a metaphor for life too, is reducing distractions that take you away from a whole and complete and connected experience with life.
I'm also experiencing at the moment getting older. There's beauty in aging, which I love, right? Which is like age to me, it doesn't. I feel very youthful, so it hasn't impacted me yet. Other than physically, I'm starting to feel it because I still play team sport.
Yeah, your energy exudes youth. But yeah, sometimes the body reminds you that it's kind of mechanical.
It's fun, and yeah, and I've always thought that, not to have any regrets. So don't leave anything on the table. Enjoy it for as long as you can. And then I tell myself I can head to golf or yoga down the track. Well, I practice yoga, but more of it. I'd like to practice more of it. So for someone who really aligns with when you mentioned about striving to thrive and being a high achiever, that mirrored my own personal life experience. I've been experiencing a softening within myself of late. And I'm wondering if that's something that you feel as you get older. Is that something that you resonate with?
Yeah, it is. And that really resonates in terms of, when I think of softening, it's of a more feminine quality. And when I think of striving and, achieving, very masculine quality. So yeah, I definitely am. And I'm in my early 40s. Like, I think that's seems to be
Just a
a
baby.
typical age. Am I? We're timeless here. I think that's just maybe that typical point in people's lives where they, are coming off the back of that, well, in our society here anyway, in Western society, of the career, the family, and then you kind of realize that you're doing the same hard pressed tasks, pushing, striving, achieving, seeking, and you're like, well, hang on, there's 5-10 years of this, 20 years of this that's been happening, and I don't feel like my meaningful experience of life has changed. So what is the meaning of life? This must be the midlife crisis moment for people. But what I've learned is that, it's all well and good to have goals and to be moving towards things in life, but to set more powerful intentions around the experience that you want out of these goals. So say, for example, your background as an elite athlete and wanting to make perhaps a certain time in a race or whatever the goal is, that's all well and good. And of course, that's important in that kind of industry and career. Yet, what's the bigger meaning as to what you're doing it all for? What's the experience you're wanting to get out of it? Is it one of freedom or exhilaration or connection, or there's a whole gamut of intentions that you could put to this particular race achievement that you're striving towards. So you have your broader intentions. So no matter what happens in that race anyway, that you will have still intended a certain experience. And the key to getting that experience is then making sure you're present for all the moments along the journey, that you're not just, I know how great it is to visualize the end of the race and see yourself crossing the finish line and how important that is to making it actually happening and manifesting it. Yet, if that's all you're focusing on, then you're missing the parts along the way, the training, the way that you're breathing into your body now, and the way that your legs come alive when you put your attention on them in this moment. And that's all going to be part of the success of the race anyway. So intention plus presence equals that softer, more divine creation in life. Like, things get accelerated in terms of creation then, has been my experience.
And two, like, I find playing sport now without the expectation of having to achieve or win. You can still experience the same outcome with this different approach of being softer and being present in the moment. Because what I realized was sport is a creative expression, just as any other activity, art, anything that comes from being inspired and you express yourself is creativity is you connecting to your intuition. And
I
so
love
as long
that.
as you are doing that in your life from moment to moment, you're going to experience what it is that you're searching for. And you don't have to be an elite athlete to do that, right? That's kind of the hard way to experience, to think that you're going to experience a certain feeling, because that's what we're all searching for, is this feeling that we think we're going to experience when we get to this goal, when we
Yeah.
get to that goal. So I love that you share that it's about the moment to moment progression
Mm,
and really connecting with yourself, having that goal in mind, but understanding that it's meant to be joyous. It's meant to be fun. It's not
yeah.
always joyous, but how can I find the bliss in this moment? Or how can I find the positive for myself?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that we do, including business, take effort, take work, and take continued action and consistency. So sometimes we're really called to look in within ourselves and go, is this really what I want to be doing? Because this isn't as fun as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way you say that about the sport being another creative expression, and that's really all it is. And yes, how can we have it fun along the way, but with boundaries? And I guess that's where you can still progress and stay disciplined in your energy and in maybe the way that your business operates. But yeah, how can we stay light along the journey, but disciplined? In yoga, this is called sthita and sukha, the balance between steadfastness, being the discipline or boundaries, and say in a yoga pose, for example, if you're in warrior pose, you need to be grounded and be holding your body in a certain way, but balancing that out with ease. So steadfastness with ease. So if you're in a yoga pose and you're holding your body and you're tensing all your muscles and you don't even know that you're breathing, so you're probably holding on to it, your energy is going to run out really quickly. You're not going to be able to sustain it for the long ride of the pose. And this is really just a metaphor for life. I mean, what you're doing in your warrior pose there is a metaphor for how you're playing at life. So you go, oh, maybe there's some other areas of my life, maybe in relationships where I don't have to be so hard on it, and I can
Mm,
let go of some rules and just breathe.
I love that. I
Mm.
love your words of wisdom. They're resonating with me strongly. Now we're recording this during a full moon energy, which often calls us to go even deeper within ourselves. So I'm wondering, sometimes I get triggered emotionally, and I know my clients do as well. So how do you navigate that when that comes up for you?
Oh, it's so juicy, isn't it? It's like it brings everything to the surface. It turns the volume up on everything that's going on for us in this moment. So consider it a gift, because and journal it. So get channel the energy of it. What tends to happen is when the volume gets turned up on your emotions and your thoughts about stuff, and say if there's something that you're judging, and someone's doing something in your life that you think they shouldn't be doing, this will be really heightened around that full moon energy, in my experience too. So journal it out. What are you getting present to in your body, in your energy, or your breath, which is the gateway? Um, what are your thoughts? What are your judgments? What are your emotions? Are you experiencing fear, anger, love, or even shame? And just put it all down on paper so that you can observe it rather than being so captured and hijacked by it, because this is really the mindfulness application, when we can watch over all that heightened stuff that happens with us. Um, and then we get to discern and choose what to do with that energy and how to channel it. So you put it on paper and you have a good look at it. You're already unfused from the energy of it, if you like. And then you go, oh, there might be stuff there that's worthwhile following. There might be an inspired idea, a great business idea in there, or what you're going to do about a particular issue in your life that might be a solution. So follow those paths. But then you might go, oh, that one about seeking revenge on that person, maybe I'm glad I got that out on the paper, and we'll leave that there.
I love that. Now, as the mum of teenagers, I personally am welcoming more teenagers into my healing room, which is so exciting,
Beautiful.
right? Teenagers who are connecting to their intuition and wanting to learn about spirituality in a safe space. And this weekend, I actually have my first Teen Goddess Circle here on the Sunshine Coast. So I am wondering, for the teens that listen to this podcast, do you have any words of wisdom for them as they navigate this stage of their life?
Oh, look, I don't know whether it's cliche or cheesy, because there's stuff I try to tell my teenage daughters who are now 11 and 15, and it doesn't fly. I don't know if it's just because it's coming from mum, though. I think it might be. I suspect it might be. I guess the question for examination that I'd put to them is, what are you passionate about? What floats your boat, and how can you bring more of that into your life? Because like we've spoken about, when we feel inspired, joyous about something that we do, it reduces distraction, it takes off the hard edges, and we can relax back into a softer, more creative state. And that's our natural state that we can live life in true alignment with, that we can really be ourselves. So initially, when you asked that question, I wanted to say, just be you. But I don't know that you go, well, what does that mean? How do I just be me? So I think finding something that you love to do and do more of that. So obviously, with the teenage girls joining a group, whether they're there because mum and dad thinks it's a good idea, or they've had some ownership over it, though, to actually show up. I don't think you can physically force anyone to be in a room. Sounds like they're all going to have a bit of a spark of interest in this way of being. They're open to it already.
The energy is going to be amazing. I actually reached out to my teenage clients when the guidance came through to me to create a circle, and I asked my daughters, who are teenagers as well, and my eldest daughter's like, Mum, I'm way too close to you. You need to reach out. Like, I don't think my answer is going to. It was hilarious, right?
I get it.
Reach out to this person. So I did. I reached out to my teenage clients and said, look, my guidance is suggesting that I create a circle for you. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And it was a resounding hell yes, let's do it. We want to connect with other like-hearted teenagers our age. And I thought, well, we have sacred women's circles. Why wouldn't we create a space for our young people who are interested, and also giving them a different kind of support network that perhaps will work for them, because there are all different kinds of support that we can gauge. So I'm already feeling the energy of it. It's really exciting, and I can't wait. Actually, it's going to be amazing.
I can feel it too. And I think it's just as important for teenagers as it is for women of any age to also remember. I think of my teenage girls, and you know how competitive things can be at that stage, like what you wear and just how much they benchmark themselves off other women. Like, I was walking through the shopping centre with my daughters, and I was just noticing how much everyone checks each other out, and just as we're walking normally. And I guess this isn't unique to teenagers. It does go on through life. Even in my yoga classes, like, everyone's comparing themselves to how the other person looks and how far forward they can put their right leg. And
Correct.
Competition is such a thief of joy. It is such a stealer of happiness. And so, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a grown adult, what brings you joy? What are you passionate about? And that will be so unique to every individual person, which will help them to live more in alignment with themselves. So I love that you're doing that for the girls. I want details about it too. Can you send them to me?
I will. It's just going to be such a special day. Like, the excitement of youth, and it's just a different energy, and they're very excited, which would be great.
Beautiful.
Now, talking about offerings, I'd love to ask what beautiful offerings that you have at the moment that perhaps you'd like to direct anyone that's listening to.
Yeah, great. So if on the website, themindfulyogaschool.com, there's some resources on there that you might like to give a go, whether you've practiced yoga, meditation, or mindfulness before, it doesn't matter. And on there is a free 5-day free 5-day meditation experience, where if you register for that freely, you get meditation audios and email guidance from me over a period of 5 days in a downloadable journal. So you can put all those things on paper that we were talking about earlier as you go along. Because what happens in meditation, it's the same as the full moon. It kind of brings stuff up to the surface for you to look at clearly. And that's a really worthwhile process to sift out the dust from the gold. There's also on there my free ebook, or links to it there, about my 4-step morning ritual that we started talking about. So you can have a deeper look at that. My core offering through the Mindful Yoga School is yoga teacher training, which is really, I say, for people who have had a taste of yoga before and have had some kind of benefit from it, then this 6-month program is about immersing deeper into what gave you that whole and connected and happy feeling as you left that yoga studio. Let's have a little bit more of a look at what went on there. And then you've got the option to create a whole new career out of it too, if you want, or teach it or incorporate it into your existing role. So all those details are on there too.
Is your course an in-person offering, the teacher's course? Is that something you can access online as well?
Yes, I've been offering it in person. So that's on the Sunshine Coast, based out of Chenrezig Buddhist Institute, and online. So this current intake, I have people on who are completing it in full online. They're from New South Wales. So it really is something that could be done from anywhere around the world. I just determine with each intake how much interest there is in that online component, because there's a whole other way that I set up so you can have the same experience as if you were in the room. So I just determine on where the numbers drop in as to whether I offer each intake online or in person. But if you're interested, express your interest anyway. That'll give me an idea.
So finally, where can we find you on social media? Because I know you have a personal Instagram page as well.
Yeah, I do. I've got personal and professional pages. They've merged into one, actually. I don't really have a line anymore these days. It's just, this is what you get. So you could find me on Facebook, again, through the Mindful Yoga School, or search for Erin Lee Yogini.
Nice. And I will include everything in the show notes. I just know if anybody's like me, I like to have a visual connection and connect energetically with somebody's visual persona as well, whilst I'm listening to podcast guests, aka stalking. So
great idea. I'm good at that too.
It just gives you that extra connection. So I think that's what's wonderful about being able to connect using social media.
Yeah, I agree. There's good purpose to social media.
Thank you so much.
Disciplined.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Erin. I look forward to listening back to this podcast when we upload it. There were so many nuggets of wisdom in there. So I hope you listen back to your own nuggets of wisdom.
Oh, thanks. Hey, it's been so nice catching up with you, and I don't feel like this will be the last time. So
no,
you're a beautiful human being and soul, and it's been lovely to spend time with you today.
Thank you. I'm actually planning to come out and take one of your classes at the Chenrezig Institute and one of your retreat days.
Yeah,
that
lovely.
would be wonderful.
Yeah, good. There's a couple coming up in March. So with some beautiful featured musicians as well on those days. So yeah, all that information's on the website.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin.
Thanks, Kay. Big love.